The Home Secretary has warned that the migrant crisis could shift to other European ports as efforts continue to beef up security at Calais. Theresa May inspected the security measures at the Eurotunnel today as Britain and France signed a new deal to target trafficking gangs. Sky's Adele Robinson reports from Calais.
In Calais, this is the front line of desperation. Their message is simple. They want a better life. And as they delivered it, tensions spilled over. And with tear gas and force, the road was cleared. At the moment, it's a standoff. The protesters were stopped from marching into town by the police, and this is their response. They've been chanting, "We are not animals." Their intention was to demonstrate to the UK and French politicians meeting just 3 miles away.
I want to message to UK. They have to help me with. Because we live in jungle. We want just help.
But the Home Secretary and the French Interior Minister kept away from camps on their tour of the Eurotunnel, signing a new deal between the two countries to try to alleviate the crisis.
We must also relentlessly pursue and disrupt the callous criminal gangs that facilitate and profit from the smuggling of vulnerable people, often with total disregard for their lives. Our two countries have a strong track record in this important work, and today we commit to even greater cooperation to combat this organised criminality.
Among the plans, more fencing, police and freight search teams, alongside a command centre to tackle trafficking.
They will share a parking and, from midnight to noon.
But charity worker Maya says it's not enough. Smugglers here are organised. They even have schedules working around one another.
Big effect is that it's going to increase the price that people have to spend to be smuggled across the UK. I mean, smugglers are very intelligent people. And to each measure that's applied like that, they'll invent a countermeasure.
With high security, there are concerns the problem could be displaced elsewhere. And as the police leave in one direction and the migrants take another to protest, it's clear that here, finding another way is always possible. Adele Robinson, Sky News, Calais.
Tony Smith is the former Director General of the UK Border Force, and he joins me now from Sutton. Thanks very much for your time, Mr Smith. I don't know how much of the joint press conference you were able to watch this morning with Theresa May and her French counterpart acting as if they were the very best of friends. We all know that the situation is rather different to that. This was a deal that could and should have been arrived at a lot sooner.
Well, we've always had a very good working relationship with the French at operational level. I spent a good deal of time over there myself when I was head of the Border Force. And we've always had this common purpose to get after the traffickers and the smugglers, they're behind this business. I think what's new here is this commitment to a joint command centre, which suggests to me there will be joint operations taking place, not just between our own agencies, because there are a number of agencies here. The Kent Police are involved, the Border Force, you've got the National Crime Agency, Border Policing Command and so on, but also the French agencies coming together in an operational structure in a joint command network with a view specifically to targeting the gangs. So that's new, and it'll be very interesting to see how this pans out.
One wonders, given that there's going to be a separate Gold Command for France and for the United Kingdom, which will have to draw on a number of resources, whether those resources on this, from the British perspective, are actually in place.
Absolutely, and I was actually Gold Command for the UK BA during the Olympics in London 2012. So, command structures like this, the Gold Commander will need to be sure he has at his disposal sufficient authorities. My understanding is that the Gold Commanders on both sides will have that and will have lines directly into the ministries on both sides of the channel. But as you know, the Home Office is not a protected department, so there are questions about Home Office and police resourcing. And this is an area that, if if I were Gold Commander, I'd be looking to make sure that we do have sufficient resources in all of our agencies available for deployment, to get this command centre working properly.
Plenty of people would welcome the joint action between the French and British governments in terms of targeting the traffickers. But what do you make of the fact that we're going to see perhaps border force staff, perhaps staff from elsewhere, going to France and essentially trying to convince these migrants that, well, in the words of one UK minister, Britain is not a land of milk and honey?
I don't think it's the job of the Border Force to do that. I mean, the Border Force are an operational organisation, very well versed in border security and in managing operations with counterparts across the Channel. And so this will be no more than an extension of the current arrangements where we already have very good working relationships. Operationally, the message to the migrants is clearly, if you want to come to this country, you need to get the necessary papers. We have passport controls in France and there are proper routes to come. But it's not okay to try and tear down fences, to break through security barriers and to enter illegally. And I think that's the message that the government has tried to convey. And clearly they've put a good deal of resource into this now, as your pictures have shown, with much greater fences, more security guards, and they persuaded the French, significantly more French police officers to keep law and order in and around the port. So all of these measures, I think, are sending a clear message that actually the UK border is they're determined to keep the UK border secure and to deploy the necessary resources in order to ensure that that happens.
I suppose the next question then becomes, if all these resources are being targeted at the situation in Calais, whether we'll simply see those migrants displaced to other ports along the coast.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a very good point. But I mean, what happens, in fact, is that there is a port-by-port risk assessment done in each area, and you need to understand, really, people need to understand the differences in traffic. Calais has always been targeted because it's a very, very high traffic port. Lots and lots of activity in crossing at Calais, freight, foot passengers, car. If you move along, for example, to Dunkirk, that's more remote. It doesn't take foot passengers. There are a couple of hours between each crossing. Much easier for the control authorities to manage the surrounding zone in an environment like that than it is in Calais. So, the idea is to look at each port, look at each egress point, and when people are found who have got through in the UK, a good debriefing system to enable us to, respond accordingly on the other side of the Channel.
Tony Smith, thanks for joining us on Sky News Tonight.